Hey folks, hope you're doing good today. I can't believe how fast this week's gone again. But if I say so myself, we've had a really nice week on the channel. A bunch of returning bands, like kind of house bands who I love to see on the channel, who we've got again today as well. But also some new bands, debut bands, and bands with just 1 or 2 subscribers that we can really get on early and kind of, start getting on board with them straight away. I love to do it. So there you go. Now, today's band, I like these guys and they really like the show as well and always liking the post, which I appreciate a lot. These guys are a 2-piece band and they love that they're a 2-piece band as well and like to make a big deal that they're a 2-piece band because it is out of the ordinary and it is unusual. And not only that, they're just bass and drums as well, although they do vocals as well. But in terms of instruments, it's just bass and drums. And these guys always introduce themselves like they have on here as Undurskin is a 2-piece bass-driven noise machine. And they're always mentioning, that they are a 2-piece band. I love to see that as well. I think these guys make cool music, but one of the other big cool things about this band is the band makeup and how they go about making the music as a 2-piece band. Because they are a 2-piece band and it's bass and drums, but they haven't just gone, all right, well, we're just bass and drums and that's it. They've figured out, well, in order to be a bass and drum 2-piece band, we're going to have to get some more gear on board and start thinking about our sound, especially as these guys play live gigs as well. And, if we want to fill out the sound as a bass and drum band, we're going to need to think about that. And they have, which is really cool. They want me to mention that they're getting really good feedback from their live gigs that they're doing. They said that our live sound is so bass heavy and full that people can't believe that we play everything live and that they've got no backing tracks, which is really, really dope. Because of that, I just want to look at this on their page, on their Instagram page. Now, I'm sure that these guys have uploaded videos of them playing live, but I can't see anything on their channel or anything like that. But I've got that memory in my mind somehow. Maybe they just uploaded it as a short or something like that. But I'd like to see some videos of these guys playing their live gigs because, if they're getting good reception, we want to see that as well. But there's a picture here. Hopefully you can see it. Yeah, you can see it pretty well on here. And this is what I'm talking about. You can see how they've got it set up here. We've got 2 big cabs there as a stereo cab, which is what I'm thinking. I'm not sure if those Black Star amps to the side of that are his as well, but maybe that's some higher ends of the bass and stuff like that. You can see he's got a massive effects pedal there as well with a whole bunch of stuff. Looks like he's even using wahs and things like that. So that's really cool. So you get an idea of, that these guys aren't just plugging into a normal bass rig and playing the drums and bass in that way. He's figured, right, well, we've got to fill out the stage. So we've got to get dual cabs and this stereo sound, like we've got 2 guitarists in that way. I've got to get a bunch of effects on my bass as well to fill out the sound in that way. I'm not sure if they're using those Black Stars for a high-end fizz as well. That's really thinking it out, to accentuate that area of the higher end of the bass, which is really cool. They've got all the drums mic'd up as well, which is dope. And I don't know if he uses effects on his vocals as well, but that would be really cool. And it looks like they've got a little kind of box there with a bunch of stuff as well. So in order to be a 2-piece drum and bass band and play live gigs and have a massive sound that people can't believe you play all the parts in, this is the amount of gear that you've got to get as well. But I love it that these guys have figured that out, thought about it all, and done it all as well. So very, very cool. Now, they've got a new track for us to check out today. It's a nice long one at 4 minutes as well. It's called Groundhog Day. Hopefully it doesn't keep going around in loops. Let's give it a spin.
Save me from my mind, it's gonna kill.
Nice. Now, what I was thinking as well is these guys haven't only figured out that they need to work on their sound and think about their sound for the live shows and get all the gear and everything. They also need to do that for the mix, because when you're just a bass and drummer, you're missing the guitars, and it's the guitars that are panned out nice and wide in the mix that give the mix the big sound and all the rest of it. But they've figured that out as well. I was listening to all of that, and they've double tracked the bass, and I was mentioning that actually to a band earlier in the week or last week, that if you're going to just do bass and drums, I think in the mix you do need to think about the bass in terms of a guitar and how that's treated within a mix in terms of double tracking it, panning it out wide, and then even maybe having another bass layer in the middle so that you've got those three elements that you'd normally have within the mix. There's a lot to think about when you're just a two-piece band, especially as just bass and drums as well, because you're losing that higher end that the guitars bring. But they've thought about that as well. The distortion that he's using has got a lot of high-end grizzle and grind to it, which kind of acts as a guitar in terms of the sound and fills out that higher end, so that doesn't just sound empty and like it needs a guitar. I was in a bass, drums, and vocals band where I was doing the vocals, and it was kind of similar, in this way, but we were a three-piece, and we did a recording, and I bet that these guys sound even heavier live than they did on this recording, even though it was a nice recording, and it sounded balanced out and everything, because that's just the way that it is with bass as well. You can crank a bass up and distort it live and it sound way heavier than you can kind of capture it on the record without it just sounding too loud and distorted. And we recorded an EP back in the day, and the mixer as well kind of didn't really figure out what was going on with the band and didn't mix the bass in the way that I was saying they would, double tracking it and all of that, and it just sounded like it needed guitars. These guys don't sound like they need guitars because they've done all the things to make up for not having a guitar, which is a long way to get to that point. But I respect that about this band. They think about that, and they like to promote that about themselves as well, because as a two-piece band, you've got to think about that stuff. You can't just drop a guitarist out of a band and keep playing songs and it still sound like it, proper. You've got to do other stuff to make up for the guitarist not being there, and these guys think about all those elements. Love to see it. Hope you had a good week this week, guys. That's it from me. We'll be back for the Monday grind. Have a good weekend, whatever you get up to, and we'll see you back on Monday for some raging bands. Cheers, guys. Bye.